When Mary was toward the end of her pregnancy, Caesar Augustus ordered everyone to go to their hometown for a great census. So Joseph went from Nazareth to Bethlehem, taking Mary with him on a 97-mile journey. Nazareth is in the hills along the northern edge of the Jezreel Valley. It was a small backwater village of not more than 200 people, meaning Mary would have known everyone in town. It was located near a freshwater spring that in later days became known as the place where the Annunciation was made to Mary. Bethlehem was far to the south. It was also a small town, about the same size and population as Nazareth. There were two ways to get there. We don't know which path Joseph and Mary chose. Either mountainous route would have taken about a week to complete. We usually see Mary and Joseph making this journey alone, but that's unlikely since hundreds of people were also going to the towns of their birth. Mary and Joseph had to bring their own provisions. They carried water in wineskins, which looked much different than those of today. They also carried a lot of bread. Breakfast would be dried bread, lunch would be oil with bread, and herbs with oil and bread in the evening. Nowhere in any gospel does it say that Mary did anything but walk, but we can assume that they had a donkey at their disposal to carry food and water. They would have walked past mile after mile of olive trees planted in groves along the road. Olives were gathered, crushed with large grinding stones, pitted, and pressed for oil. The extra virgin oil from the olives was used in the anointing of kings. The fields on the slopes of the valleys could grow various grains, wheat, barley, and millet, whose chaff was separated with threshing. Each day's journey would have ended at the spring or well that could provide for the needs of all the people and animals in the caravan. At the time Jesus was born, the large meal of the day might have included wheat or barley bread, cheese, vegetables, fruits, beans, lentils. Fish was the most common meat. Beef and lamb were served only on special occasions, like the fatted calf at the return of the prodigal son. The house of Mary and Joseph's family would have had a simpler cooking area, perhaps a circle of stones with a fire at the center or a small bread oven. It was in the main room of the house, along with the sleeping and eating areas. Cupboards were unnecessary because small niches were cut into the walls, storage space for bedrolls, clothes, small items of food, etc. But grain or oil for cooking was kept in a separate storage area. There was also space for animals in their food troughs called mangers. Twice a day, in the cool of the morning and in the evening, women took large earthenware pitchers to the village well, where they pulled the water up with a leather bucket on the end of a rope. This was the time of day when they talked with their friends, waiting to draw water. Meals were simple but wholesome. The easiest, simplest meal would have been bread dipped in olive oil mixed with hyssop. Grain for bread was ground by the women on two grinding stones, the lower one fixed, the other one rotating and movable. The grain was mixed with water, and then fermented dough, kept for this purpose, was kneaded into the dough, which was left to rise. Then the thin, flat circles of dough were slapped onto the hot stones in the fire, or placed in a bread oven if the family had one. Bread was a feature of every meal, and women made it as often as needed. In summer, they probably baked several days' supply at a time to cut down on the discomfort caused by the heat of their oven. Sugar? Unheard of. So most people had healthy teeth. Honey was used as a sweetener, but only occasionally and usually by the wealthy. Mary of Nazareth almost certainly kept a kosher kitchen. This meant the kitchen itself and each item of food was proper for a Jewish family. Certain foods were and are permitted to Jews, others are not. As a devout Jewish family, Mary and Joseph carefully observed the dietary laws of Judaism. So now you know a little bit more about their journey and the foods they might have eaten along the way and at that time. Merry Christmas!